Hey everybody, it's Kennedy Hawk from the MCM crew, and I am super excited to talk about Day 8 of Decklist 2022, which is our annual MCM holiday tradition. I spent all of November crafting a ton of fun decks, and I'm going to release them to the community throughout December as a holiday gift. Happy holidays! Whatever holiday you, your family, and friends celebrate, I hope it includes playing some of my favorite LCG, and hopefully your favorite LCG, Marvel Champions, with your family and friends. So today's deck for Day 8 is going to be all about using aggression allies and avoiding or preventing nasty effects like consequential damage. In fact, consequential damage will be quite inconsequential when we play this deck. If you haven't been to a Decked Halls video before or listened to the Decked Halls podcast, special episodes before in December, basically what I do is I take my card pool, I craft a bunch of fun new decks, or I update decks that I've seen on the DB, test them pretty thoroughly against 5 or 6 villains, and then release them to the community and show a gameplay video using the deck. This year's a little bit different. In the past, I've tried to build a deck for each hero that was released as like a gift to that hero and the community, but we're now at 41 heroes in the game, so that's a little bit unsustainable. As much as I'd love to release 41 decks, probably not a good idea for my life. So what I'm doing instead is I have crafted 12 really fun decks, at least fun to me decks, for you all to play over the holiday season. And I've done this from one card pool. So I took all of my cards. I have multiple copies of some expansions. I put one set of cards aside and built these 12 decks. So if you own everything, you'll be able to reduce your holiday stress by just building these 12 decks with me, taking them to your holiday events to play with your family and friends, and not having to worry about that deck building aspect or challenge of how to introduce people to the game with decks. Other content creators are also celebrating the season this year, so check out the Critical Encounters YouTube page and the Get Up and Game YouTube page for other fun Marvel Champions holiday content. In the holiday spirit, we're going to continue raising funds for UNM Children's Hospital. We are extremely close to our $500 raised by the Marvel Champions community goal. So even if you have $1 to spare, we greatly appreciate the donation, as does the local children's hospital that has taken care of my kids on numerous occasions. Last bit of news before we get to the deck. The MCM 2022 community survey is now live. It's going to be live until January 31st. You're going to be hearing this in just about every video and podcast episode for a while. We're trying to get as many opinions from the community as possible about the state of the game after 2022. We want to learn all about your favorite things from the releases this year and your favorite things to return to using this year's releases. So be sure to check the link in the show notes for that survey. Alright, so today's deck, Inconsequential. This is actually inspired by a Drew Dr. 00 deck from Marvel CDB. He was using Throg and Angela and some Guardians allies and 7 Rings of Ragador to sort of avoid consequential damage from things like Enraged. And there's a lot of new aggression allies that I wanted to try that out with, so I sort of built this deck. Our goal is to take the sting away of excess consequential damage or consequential damage altogether using 7 Rings of Ragador. There's lots of combos, and we'll go over them in the next page, but let's just quickly talk about the deck in general. The 2 new allies I'm focusing on are Wolverine and Dust. So Dust has the ability Interrupt. When Dust attacks a minion, she attacks each minion in play and takes +1 consequential damage after this attack. So she only has an attack of 1, but if we play Enraged on her, she can now AoE the board for 3, and we'll get that even higher, we'll see on the combos page. Wolverine, obviously, a really strong ally. 3 damage attack with piercing as his base attack, but he takes 2 consequential, and yeah, he heals 1 on your next turn, but it kind of limits how quickly you can use his ability. Well, if you can pump up his attack, throw tough counters on him, you don't have to worry about that excess consequential damage, which can be super fun. So the deck overall, it's a weird hodgepodge of X-Men, Guardians, and magic from Doctor Strange. So for allies, we have Bug, Cosmo, and Marvel Boy from the Guardians, and Star-Lord. We have Dust and Wolverine from the X-Men, and Wong. For events, we've got all of our Doctor Strange events, and then we've got 3 copies of As One, and we'll talk about that Alliance event here in a little bit. We've got the 3 basic resources and 2 copies of Boot Camp as our supports. That's going to pump these allies even more, because ally aggression is just crazy nowadays. For upgrades, we have Attack Training. That's the X-Men Attack Training, so you can play that onto Wolverine or onto Dust. We've got Combat Training for Doctor Strange himself. Doctor Strange only has a 1 attack stat, but you're going to see we want to pump that up a little bit. We have 3 copies of Energy Spear, because we have 4 Guardians. Just really, really efficient weapon. We have 3 copies of Enrage. Since we're going to try to ignore consequential damage, the extra consequential damage from Enrage really doesn't affect us all that much. And then we've got 3 copies of Brute Force, which is kind of a head scratcher. Hopefully I'll be able to explain it pretty well here in a little bit. But Brute Force is an upgrade you play on your hero. It gives the hero +1 attack, and then gives the attack piercing, and it says when you perform a basic attack, you must discard this card after. So it's sort of a one-use piercing attack. Now, the reason that's really good with Doctor Strange is Doctor Strange has an inherent ability to exhaust his character that's going to make you not want to perform basic attacks, right? To use your invocations, you have to exhaust Doctor Strange. So you're not performing a ton of basic attacks, and there's honestly an interesting decision point. If you see Bug early and you stack him with a bunch of upgrades, you're probably going to want to use Strange's basic attack to keep healing Bug, right? If you get a boot camp and an energy spear down, you're probably going to be using your basic attack with Doctor Strange. And then maybe you're skipping your brute forces. But if you see Marvel Boy or Cosmo first, and they get enraged, and they get energy spear, and you get a boot camp down, now you're in the as-1 land where you could as-1 for some pretty crazy numbers. So in solo, the only Avenger you have is Doctor Strange. But in multiplayer, we'll talk about that. You can lean into other players' decks. But you can play these brute forces to thin your deck, and then have giant attacks with as-1 and only use Doctor Strange's exhaustion to either thwart, as-1, or play invocations. Alright, let's get to some of those combos. I'm rambling a little bit longer than I like to here. So here's 2 of the combos I wanted to highlight in my talk through. So if you can get a boot camp down, which you're going to want to do right away because you're all about ally damage, you're going to count on invocations to hold you in the game until you get your allies set up. You can get a boot camp down and a copy of Dust. You can then play Enraged and attack training on Dust. She's going to be up to 5 basic attack, and when she attacks a minion, that's AoE to all the minions on the board. She can almost clear the table of minions every turn. Against Ultron, she obviously can, but like against Mutagen Formula, I was testing this in multiplayer, and we had a turn where Dust knocked out 7 goblins. It was crazy. So the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you can get a tough counter on Dust using 7 Rings of Ragador, because Enraged is going to provide an extra consequential, her ability is going to provide an extra one, so you're taking 3 consequential just from your basic attack, but your basic attack is bonkers. Another way to do that is with Marvel Boy. So Marvel Boy has a base attack of 2, we can put Energy Spear on him, and now he's got a base attack of 4 plus piercing. You could even pay a fist to give it ranged if you wanted. If you play Enraged on him, you can get your base attack up to 6, and with a boot camp, that's a 7 base attack on your aggression ally. That's crazy. 7 basic attack with piercing. Now, again, you get an extra consequential from Enraged, you get your base inconsequential from Marvel Boy, so if you don't have a tough on Marvel Boy, he's basically a one-shot attack. That's a lot of resources for 7 damage. It's not a lot of resources for 7 damage every turn if you can keep spamming Rings of Ragador. So once you get your allies set up, let's say you get Dust in this setup, you get Marvel Boy in this setup, and maybe you get Cosmo as well with Energy Spear and Enraged, you basically want to let 7 Rings of Ragador sit on top of your deck and only play it when you draw a Master of the Mystic Arts so that you can just keep giving everybody tough and then sitting on your allies and floating for a turn or 2 in the middle. You can use those allies with has-1 on the turns that they don't have tough, because that's also going to help avoid consequential damage, and that's the next combo I was going to show off on the next slide. So here's the combo with Brute Force. So if you can get Marvel Boy down with, like, let's say an Enraged and an Energy Spear, he's up to a base 6 attack. A little bit bonkers. With Doctor Strange, you only have a base 1 attack, so if you played as-1 is an alliance event that costs 2. Hero action, exhaust an Avenger character and a Guardian character, deal X damage to an enemy, where X is the combined ATK of those characters. This attack gains overkill. So with just the Marvel Boy setup, and using Doctor Strange and Marvel Boy, this becomes a 7 damage attack with overkill. Since you're using Doctor Strange to play your invocations and not performing base attacks, when you play 3 copies of Brute Force, that becomes a 10 damage attack with overkill. That's a little bit bonkers. With combat training and magical enhancements from Doctor Strange's kit, you can get that even higher. I've had as high as a 12 damage as-1 attack one time, which was just a little bit crazy. It can be a really fun combo to pull off. It's usually like your end game move. Once like everything is set up, now you're like, okay, I'm going to spam as-1 every turn. On turns I don't spam as-1, I'm going to spam Rings of Ragador, and then all 3 of my allies are going to attack, and it's going to be wonderful. The nice thing about as-1 is since it's an alliance card, you can pay the cost. Anybody at the table can play the cost. Maybe you don't have the 2 resources, another player can play the resources and you can play the event. Or maybe you have the 2 resources and you have a stacked Marvel Boy. but you haven't played any brute forces, so Doctor Strange is only adding 1 attack. Anyone with an Avenger at the table can exhaust their Avenger to add their attack instead of Doctor Strange, so you might be able to perform crazy shenanigans in multiplayer, which we definitely have done to a lot of effect. So that's the deck for this week. It's for hero highlights, this is pretty much a deck just for Doctor Strange. There's not a lot of other characters that have a way of avoiding that much consequential damage. Maybe Cyclops with some tactics, but even then, he's not like characters that take 3 consequential damage. You could do something with Spider-Woman if you mixed in, Muster Courage, the protection card, because then you could give Tough to your allies, but Muster Courage is basically like a super expensive Rings of Ragador, so it's definitely the best deck, or the best hero is definitely Doctor Strange to play this deck. I recommend trying it out, and we're going to play it with Nebula here next. Hey everybody, this is Kennedy Hawk from the MCM team. We are going to continue our gameplay for decked halls. Today we're using our Boot Camp Brute Force Doctor Strange deck to go against standard Nebula with Bomb Scare, because she is Nebula at the end of the day. Alright, Assault and Advance are the 2 cards per player that we discard at the beginning of the game, so that worked out surprisingly well. We're going to start with Winds of Watoomb as our first invocation, and didn't draw to any allies. So we will keep a Master of the Mystic Arts, that's not a problem. We're going to discard everything except for Master of the Mystic Arts and our Cloak, because those are both good things. And draw 4. Just looking for any kind of allies we can get. We get some good stuff. So let's see what we can do here. We're going to flip up and use Protective Ward to play Master of the Mystic Arts. That lets us draw 3 cards from Winds of Watoomb. And now we can use Doctor Strange to draw 3 more cards from Winds of Watoomb, which does not hurt. We're going to go ahead and play our Cloak of Levitation. And I think we're going to ready and go ahead and use Crimson Bands of Sidorak as well. I know we're supposed to be playing allies and not using Doctor Strange's invocations, but it's hard to want to do that when such good things are showing up. Alright, let's get a little bit to the theme of our deck. Let's pay 2 for Marvel Boy, and let's get an Enraged and an Energy Spear onto him. And we're going to let him sit at that. He's at 6 damage with Piercing. Seems pretty good, but 1 attack kills himself right now. So we need some tough status cards before we can use that. We did not use our Milano at all, which is a bit of a bummer, but that's okay. Drawing 5 cards. 1 threat going on the main. We are up to 1 evasion counter. Nebula is stunned, thank goodness, and our encounter card is combat ready. Discard cards until you discard a technique ability. Reveal it, then solve its special ability. So we got Evasive Maneuvers, which gives her Stalwart. The special ability is that you're stunned. Excellent. And that's going to surge because it's a reveal. Into False Alarm, so we are stunned and confused. Oh my goodness. What's going on here? It's our go. Alright. We got a lot of nothing, if I'm being honest. I think we're going to go ahead and use Mystical Studies to play Icon, just to thwart, honestly. To thwart without thwarting. We get a Vapors of Valtor, which is great right now. So we're going to ready with our Cloak and Vapors this Stunned into a Tough. Doesn't hurt at all. What else do we want to do? Let's use the Milano and pitch 1 to go down to 0 cards, obviously. And then I think we're going to use... How do we want to do this? Let's use Attack Training with Master of the Mystic Arts to resolve the 7 Rings of Ragador. That's going to give Tough to Marvel Boy at least, so that Marvel Boy can go swinging here soon. Alright. Nebula's going to attack us bigly real soon. We've already used all our readies, so let's ready up and draw 5 cards. 1 threat going on the main, 1 evasion counter. Nebula is going to attack us, and before she does, she's going to stun us. So we are stunned, confused, and tough. And she swings for 5 into our tough status card. We've got 1 encounter card to deal with, and it is a Hydra Bomber. We're definitely just going to take 2 damage from him. Not a big deal at all. Okay. We're still moving here slowly, getting everything set up. So we're going to go ahead and pay 2 for Bug. We're going to get an Energy Spear put onto him. And with Doctor Strange, we will attempt to do an attack just to clear stunned. And then we'll ready with our cloak. And we will actually play the 7 Rings of Ragadorf Reveal this time. So we've got a tough on Doctor Strange, a tough on Bug. Before we do that last tough, we'll attack once with Marble Boy, absorbing his tough and dealing 6 damage to Nebula. So he gets tough back because we get 3 for the Rings of Ragador. We still do have this Hydra Bomber, but I'm not too worried about him yet. Alright. We're drawing 5 cards. 2 threat going on the main. We're up to 2 evasion counters. We're going to have to pay that tax next turn. Nebula has 3 attack, and she's coming at us. We're just blindly going to ignore her. Ooh, we are going to, after this activation ends, attach this to Nebula. Thank goodness. So she will hit our tough off, and then we'll take 1 from Weapon Mastery. Our encounter card is a Wide Stance, which means it's going to surge into a Barrel Roll, which is an Insight, increase those, and surge into a Cutthroat Ambition. So we have a Nebula that cannot take more than 5 damage from a single attack, who also reduces the amount of damage she takes from each attack by 1, who also has Retaliate 1. So basically, we need to let her attack us 1 more time before we do anything crazy here. Okay. We do need to reshuffle our Invocation deck. We get Images of Icon, which is great. We will use Magical Enhancements with Doctor Strange to play that. Lets us remove all the threat from the main scheme and confuse Nebula. Seems like a win-win. We are going to use the Milano with As 1 and Protective Ward to remove 2 of those counters. Pretty important. We're going to ready with our cloak and complete a confuse. And I think I'm just going to use Wong to play a Brute Force down at the table. We're ready to go. We could attack with our characters, but I like keeping tough on them for now, so we're going to linger for a moment. We've got 2 threat going on the main, 2 evasion counters. Nebula is going to attack us, and she's going to resolve all of these things. She's going to place a threat in the main scheme. She's going to discard a random card from our hand, which is a bummer, because we have some good cards in our hand. There goes Energy. And she is going to deal 1 damage to us. And she discards all of them because she's in phase 1. I think we're going to defend here with Bug. So she's attacking for 3, 4, 5 into his tough token. And we get 1 encounter card, which is Gang Up, so she is going to attack again, but this is just a 3 plus a boost card, so we're going to take it on Doctor Strange. We're down to 2 health. We need to be a little bit careful here. Alright. What can we do? We can pay 2. Well, let's just go ahead right away and use Doctor Strange to win some Fatum and draw 3 cards. See what we get as an option. Oh, and this Hydra Bomber has attacked us twice now, so one of those we're going to have to block with Marble Boy, unfortunately. Just to be fair and honest, I forgot about him, so we'll put it back out there. Ouchers. Okay. We drew our 3 cards. We did get a Boot Camp, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, I like Boot Camp. We have the chance to flip down this turn, so we're going to ready with Cloak and kill that Hydra Bomber, which seems important. We're going to pay 2 for our Eye of Agamotto. and use that and Star-Lord to pay for an astral projection. We get to know what the top card is. We have a barrel roll coming at us, and the scheme is now empty. We will use the last 2 cards in our hand to go down to 0 tokens. We're going to ready everybody up and flip Doctor Strange down. I'm going to get rid of Vapors of Valtor using Doctor Strange's ability and draw 6 cards. I am going to get a bonus encounter card this turn. So we've got Cloak, we've got Eye, we've got Bug with a Spear, we've got Marvel Boy with a Spear and an Enraged, and we've got 1 Brute Force in play. We still haven't taken the Power Stone. 1 threat going up on the main. Nebula is confused, and we get a You Are Confused. Great. And a barrel roll, which we knew was coming. Inside 1 Surge, add a evasion counter into a Hydra Bomber. We have an astral projection, so we'll place the threat for now. Okay, I think Doctor Strange probably needs to heal. He's struggling here a little bit. We're going to flip up. We're going to ready with our Cloak of Levitation, and then use... let's use Combat Training to pay for the 7 Rings of Ragador, giving everybody a tough. Before we take those toughs, Bug is going to finish off Hydra Bomber. Okay, so he takes 1 consequential damage. We need to play this Astral Projection. We decided that already. So I get to remove 5, and it looks like a Rogue Vessel is going to be my encounter card. I probably need to clear the evasion counters with the Milano, which is a bit of a bummer, and then I'm going to use my Eye of Emerald to play a 2nd Brute Force. So I'm up to a base 3 attack. We've got a lot of toughs out there, and we should be good to go. Drawing 5 cards, 1 threat going on the main. Alright, Nebula's going to attack us for 3 plus something. We knew it was +2. All gets absorbed by tough. We get 1 encounter card, and it's a Cutthroat Ambition. That's going to surge into a Bomb Scare. So nothing we can't handle yet. This isn't too big of a deal. She can't take more than 5 from a single attack. That's a bummer, because we're going to do some really cool stuff there. What do we want to do? I think we will use Dust, Eye of Agamotto, and Star-Lord to play a Magic Blast. It's going to pop her for 5, and discard the top card of our deck, which is an energy, so it's going to hit for 2 more on her next phase, which is pretty cool. So she's going to jump to 17, and then immediately get hit for 2. And she does have a Cutthroat Ambition on her, but that was not an attack. Or it was an attack, but they were 2 separate sources of damage. So I think that's okay. I'm honestly not sure. We're going to use Protective Ward to play an Enraged onto Bug. So we now have 5 damage from Bug, 6 damage from Marvel Boy, and 3 damage from Strange. So we are very close to being able to eliminate her. But first, we're going to have to survive another turn. I was just flipped down, I believe. So I need to stay in this form, unfortunately. I can thwart for 2 with Strange, ready, and then thwart for another 2 to get rid of Bomb Scare. And then we're good to go, drawing 5 cards. So we've got 2 threat going on the main, up to 2 evasion counters. Nebula's going to attack us, and she's going to place a threat and get rid of Cutthroat Ambition. She's swinging for 3 plus something. I think we're going to have Bug block it. 3 plus 2, 5. Yep, that would have killed Strange. So we'll use Bug's Tough token instead. And our encounter card is a Exhaust the Milano card. Not a big deal for us. Okay. What do we want to do here? We got a lot of good things in our hand. We have Mystical Enhancements, so we could get up to forward image ourselves. Now is the time to swing while we can swing, right? So I think Marvel Boy will go first. He's going to swing for 6 damage and lose his Tough. Down to 9 on the villain. Strange could swing for 3, but he would lose his Brute Forces, so I don't think we're going to worry about that yet. I think we will use this Enraged. Oh, We'll use Mystical Studies and Wong to play Cosmo, and Magical Enhancements. And our Eye of Agamotto to enrage Cosmo. So Cosmo can now do 3 a turn. He can keep guessing event, which is exciting. We will thwart with Doctor Strange. Ready and thwart. We haven't done anything with the Milano yet, so we'll discard 1. Oh no, we exhausted the Milano, that's right. So yeah, we're just going to discard this card and draw 5. Was thinking about flipping down there for a second, but decided not to. I may regret that. In fact, I'm sure I'll regret that. 3 threat going on the main phase, up to 3 counters. She's going to attack us for 3 plus something, and I think we're going to throw Cosmo in front of it. Cosmo gets hit for 6. Good choices all around. We get an encounter card. It's a Nebula attacks you. If she deals damage, add a counter. So we're going to have Bug block this one. 3 and reduce the damage she takes from attacks by 1. And resolve its special ability. Discard a random card from your hand. We discarded a Master of the Mystic Arts. Alright. So she's going to reduce damage she takes by 1, but I think that that's okay, because we have 3 base attack on Strange, 6 on Marvel Boy. So we could do something like this. We can pay 2 for as 1, exhausting Marvel Boy and Strange to do 8 damage in 1 attack. And then, oh no. Before we do that, we have another Brute Force in hand. Let's play a 3rd Brute Force, and that solves the problem. I was going to say, if we ready, we could attack her, but it reduces our 1 damage by 1, which doesn't do us much good. But we can defeat her using 3 Brute Forces and an as 1 with Marvel Boy. So Doctor Strange has traversed space, taken out Nebula on a stupendous day 8 of Holiday Season Deck Talks. Thanks for tuning in.